interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Month.
Whole month of Courage, the Cowardly Dog. First appearing in 1996, it was picked up by Cartoon Network, who work in the middle of Burbank, and directed by cartoonist John Dilworth. Though many years have passed since the original air date, it's now time for Zack to celebrate this great show.
Well, old sport, what do you think? Neat.
Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to Courage Month. So today's reviews of Courage the Cowardly Dog that we're going to be covering are in Louvre, So Are We Too, and Night of the Scarecrow. So let's get into both of those. Okay, so this first episode, in Louvre Are We Too, is about the Bag family actually going to the Louvre because they kind of won a contest, and then some interesting things happen while they're there. So again, it starts off with them winning that aforementioned contest, and also this is the first episode where Eustace is voiced by a new person because his previous voice actor also died. So yeah, he doesn't get the luxury of being retired because he's a main character, but he does have a new voice actor from this episode forward. But in any case, Muriel is happy about the fact that they're at the Louvre in Paris because they won a contest of a cereal box, which is kind of funny and a little bit interesting. But in any case, they much to Eustace's chagrin, because he doesn't understand fine art, they actually bring him to the. They actually try to go into the Louvre, but the guard on duty actually tells them that they can't go in because they've only got 5 minutes to look around and it's about to close. But Muriel insists that they actually go in because, as she points out, she was always told when she was younger that she looked almost exactly like the Mona Lisa. And that she has to see her because she's always felt like they were kind of sisters. But and while the guard doesn't fully believe her, but then decides to let her in anyway, just so that he can prove that they're not indeed, that they don't really look alike. So he lets them look around for a bit. And they actually do wind up finding the Mona Lisa. And Eustace kind of grumbles about the fact that he isn't really a fan of fine art, and actually sits down underneath the kissing sculpture, which kind of disgusts him a little bit because, again, not really an appreciator of fine art. Eustace Bag is. But in any case, Muriel finds the Mona Lisa and points out that she's the most famous painting in the world, for reasons that are very much revealed in the episode, because she got famous over her smile, and people just kind of fell in love with her because of that. So now the Mona Lisa is one of the most famous paintings in the world. But in any case, Muriel then asks Courage to actually take a picture, but which he does. He actually picks up the camera and is about to take a picture, but then the Mona Lisa actually makes a bit of a goofy face, and when Courage is kind of completely confused as to what's going on. He doesn't understand why the Mona Lisa is actually making a face, and he freaks out a little bit, but Muriel asks Courage what's wrong and points out that the resemblance is a little bit uncanny. So Courage just chalks it up to the lens being dirty and tries again, and this time the Mona Lisa starts flirting with him and blows him a kiss. And then he's pretty sure that he didn't see something this time around. And at which point, and it's at this point where Eustace actually pulls him aside and asks him to take a picture of himself with the thinker. And then kind of makes a joke about the thinker is probably thinking about the fact that there's no TV set, which Courage kind of rolls his eyes at, but then takes a picture of. But then the thinker also moves and makes a face, which causes Courage to realize that there is indeed something funny going on. But in any case, they continue to go through the Louvre and continue to kind of snap pictures of the various pictures when they eventually come across an exhibit that is suspiciously like their own living room. It's like they have a fireplace roaring in the background, and then they have the rocking chair, Eustace's comfy chair that he likes to sit in, and then there's a tea set and stove for whatever reason. And they decide to, the Bags actually decide that they need to actually take a load off, so they sit down in the chairs. Courage actually curls up on Muriel's lap, and then they go to sleep. and it's because they actually curl up and go to sleep on in this exhibit that the Louvre guard actually doesn't know that they're in there. He actually pokes his head around to look, but because they're currently sleeping in one of the exhibits, he believes they're just part of the exhibit and believes they're just the sculptures. So he decides to just lock them up with them in there, and they wind up getting locked into the Louvre. Which actually wakes Courage up, and he actually lets Eustace and Muriel know what's going on. So, and at which point they do indeed wake up, and Muriel decides she actually wants to go and see the Mona Lisa again. So she remarks that that you can actually see through the ceiling of the Louvre. But she remarks that even the planets look so pretty, and even notes that Venus and Mars seem like they're going to line up, which they do. As Muriel is actually looking at the Mona Lisa, the planets actually align and the paintings all come to life. At which point the Mona Lisa sticks a hand out of her portrait to actually gesture to Muriel to actually come and join her, which Courage tries to stop, but then the Mona Lisa just pulls her into the painting and then swaps places with her, because that is the only way they're actually able to stay out of their paintings. At which point the Mona Lisa actually starts flirting with the Thinker, who also comes to life and gets up. At which point Eustace actually yells at him to put some clothes on, which he does. He then takes Eustace's clothes, and Eustace winds up taking the place of the Thinker on the pedestal. At which point the Mona Lisa starts flirting with the Thinker and tells them that they should go on a date and actually go and hang out. And there quickly becomes a problem with that, and it quickly becomes an inherent problem with trying to date the Thinker at all. Because, as you can probably, I hope I don't need to picture either of these two because they're very famous painting and sculpture. But the Thinker, one of the apparent things of the Thinker is that he is not very good. He's not a very perceptive person, because even the most simple of things makes him want to think, because he's not entirely sure if he wants to actually date, if he actually wants to go out with Mona Lisa, and actually starts thinking about and has to actually think it over a little bit. But Mona Lisa insists that they go somewhere, and then they wander off. And Courage has to actually follow them to get Muriel back, because Muriel is currently stuck in what used to be the Mona Lisa painting. She can't get out. She is very much stuck. And can't really move. So Courage realizes he needs to actually get the Mona Lisa back in her painting if he wants Muriel to get back out. So he proceeds to go and follow them around, and eventually winds up at a painting called The Park, where he hears the Mona Lisa and Thinker talking, and the Mona Lisa wants to go into the water with in that painting, but the Thinker is on the rocks, because he actually thinks it might be too cold, might be too hot, he might get sunburned, and he has to think it over, which kind of annoys the Mona Lisa a little bit. At which point Courage tries to sneak in, which is kind of hard because there's a no dog sign, and one of the policemen in the painting actually catches him and shucks him out, where he lands in the painting Dogs Playing Poker, where he wins the poker game and the dogs kick him out over that, which results in him landing at the foot of the Mona Lisa, where Muriel is currently trapped. And Muriel tells him that he actually needs to get her out of there because she's currently feeling herself dry. And so Courage realizes he needs to hurry and actually starts looking around, and eventually hears them hanging out in the Nighthawk. He actually sees them hanging out at a diner where they're actually trying to order some food, and are actually trying to and the Mona Lisa is very much trying to get the Thinker to kiss her. At which point Courage actually pops in, realizes he can actually figure out a way to actually solve his problem, and then proceeds to go back to the kissing sculpture to try and entice the man to actually help out. But the kissing sculpture man isn't really interested, so Courage decides to do something a little bit underhanded to actually get the Mona Lisa out of her painting. And so what he does is he actually goes into the painting Cupid, swipes Cupid's bow and arrow, which Cupid kind of balls over a little bit, but Courage trades him for a Game Boy for it, so it winds up working out. And then he winds up shooting the shooting the sculpture man and showing him a picture of the Mona Lisa, and he immediately falls in love and decides that he and the kissing sculpture woman have to actually start seeing other people, which she becomes very annoyed with him over for perfectly obvious reasons. Obviously, they're quite literally made for each other. Obviously, that's a very dick move to be taken. But in any case, the sculpture man actually winds up taking a picture of an outfit from Shakespeare and winds up dressing himself up from it from a portrait of Shakespeare, and the kissing sculpture man then proceeds to go to the Nighthawk diner and actually call to Mona Lisa, who realizes that if the thinker isn't going to kiss her, then she knows somebody who absolutely will, and then leaps in the kissing sculpture's arms and starts kissing him. At which point, while the thinker is just left in Nighthawk Diner, contemplating whether he should have super salad and can't really decide on what he wants to eat. So yeah, the thinker winds up getting stuck in that painting. Meanwhile, the plans start to unalign, and Courage realizes he has a very limited window to get Muriel out. So he takes the Mona Lisa painting, slams it on both the kissing sculpture man and Mona Lisa, and winds up returning them to their paintings. And then proceeds to pull Muriel out before she can actually get stuck in. Now because of that, Muriel and Courage are now reunited, but they really have no way of actually getting home. At which point they note the painting with the pitchfork. I don't know what it's called, but they note that the house in the background looks suspiciously like their house. And Courage decides to actually leap into it before the plans can unaligne, and as it turns out, it is their house. And then they frame the portrait that Muriel took of them at the Louvre. But then she wonders when Eustace is going to return home, and he never is, because he was forced to take the place of the thinker as the new thinker statue, and he's very annoyed by that, because obviously the thinker is never coming back because he's currently stuck in the Nighthawk, because it was explained how they can only move around their paintings when the planets align, and now that the planets are no longer aligned, the thinker can't actually leave. So because of that, Eustace actually winds up being stuck as a thinker, and kind of complains about his back is itchy, and then the guard actually kind of makes fun about how he's a stupid American, because obviously he didn't realize that there was a warning, and now he's stuck. So yeah, this episode is interesting in that apparently this episode just implies that your famous paintings actually come to life, and when the full moon rises. And also, I feel like the Night at the Museum series actually took direct inspiration from this episode, because this episode aired several years before those films were even in production. I get the feeling that's where they got their core concept from. I get the feeling they took this idea and just ran with it. But yeah, this episode is kind of interesting in that it predates those films for quite a bit, and is actually one of the earlier episodes of this. And also, it's just fun seeing Courage interact with several different famous paintings and sculptures. It's just a really fun episode, and I kind of like it. And also the final part where they actually go inside a painting is kind of weird, because that implies that they can actually that the paintings actually wind up, that their house actually exists within a painting, and they can actually go through the Louvre from that, but which is weird. But in any case, that's my review of So in Love We Are Too. Onward to the next review. Okay, so this episode, Night of the Scarecrow, is interesting in that, long story short, the bags actually take in a scarecrow that got pecked to hell and back by birds. So it starts off with Courage, Eustace, and Muriel actually returning from the county fair. With Muriel having won first prize for something, Courage having won a goldfish and has some cotton candy, and Eustace is just complaining that he spent too much money, and that he just threw some money down the drain, as it were. But in case they start to get into Eustace's truck and proceed to drive down the road when the family suddenly notices a giant swarm of crows coming toward them, and Muriel decides at that exact moment to actually close up the window, pointing out that there must be a storm coming. So she does. At which point one of the crows actually winds up getting stuck in the window, and starts cawing at them. which freaks Courage out, and he actually clings to Eustace for safety, who then proceeds to drive through a corn maze and just kind of plows through it without any real idea of where he's going. And eventually the truck gets stuck in a ditch, and the crow is eventually able to free itself and gets away. At which point Eustace is just very annoyed with Courage because he almost caused a car crash, and then proceeds to shove him in the glove compartment and lock it so that he doesn't cause any more problems. But in any case, Muriel really remarks that there's no reason for them to lose their heads over this, and points out that and starts to point out that her Aunt Gertrude used to say a thing, but is then interrupted when she sees a vaguely human-shaped thing lumber toward the car, and she lets out a scream. And the vaguely humanoid thing actually winds up collapsing on the roof of the car. So Eustace winds up honking at it, and it's revealed that what's actually on the roof of the car is a Scarecrow, and a very generic looking one at that. But in any case, the Scarecrow isn't. But in any case, Courage hears all the commotion, actually manages to pick the lock on the glove compartment so he can poke his head out, and when he sees the Scarecrow, he decides to immediately duck back in and puts a "Do Not Disturb" sign over the handle of the glove compartment. So, at which point Eustace kind of remarks about how it's an ugly Scarecrow, and tells Muriel not to touch it, which even though Muriel doesn't listen and gets out of the car to actually investigate, and points out that it does need a bit of a patchwork job, but other than that, it's a pretty salvageable Scarecrow, and she decides to take it in so that it can actually decides to actually bring it home. So she does, and then back at the bag farm, they actually put it on the kitchen table and proceed to give it surgery, if you can call it that. They start patching it up and give it a new outfit so that it's no longer, it has bites taken out of it, and there's just massive holes where there should be pieces of straw and patches. So Muriel actually winds up piecing it back together, and Courage actually faints when he sees a mouse jump out of some of the hay. But in any case, they do eventually manage to patch it back up, and the Scarecrow does indeed bow its head to her, because it currently doesn't have a mouth, even though it's in the picture that I showed, but it doesn't have a mouth yet. But in any case, it then bows its head to Muriel, and points out that while I can't really speak, it does express that it's incredibly grateful to her. At which point, Eustace barges into the room, complaining about all the junk she's left all over the place, and actually winds up kicking her sewing basket, and starts rooting through the refrigerator, which annoys the Scarecrow, and he tries to scare Eustace, but Eustace just gets annoyed with it and shoves it away, and then proceeds to just leave the kitchen and presumably go back to sit down in his chair. At which point the Scarecrow kind of expresses that you can't really hear it speak, but it does kind of express that it wishes it was scarier. But Muriel really was really sorry for why that happened. But then remarks if only it could express itself more clearly, because she can't understand it. But then realizes she can actually help with that, and actually pulls out her needle and thread and sews the Scarecrow a mouth so that he can actually express himself. And now that the Scarecrow has a mouth, he then proceeds to express how he wishes he could be more helpful to actually scaring off threats to Muriel, but Muriel merely remarks that it's fine and that he hasn't regotten his strength back yet. And then later that day, Muriel's actually going through rooting some weeds, while the Scarecrow actually recovers in the shade, and she tells him to take all the time he needs until he can get back on his feet again. And then she also asks Courage to actually pour some lemonade, and Courage is currently eating a PB&J, so he decides to so he's already in the house, so he actually goes to pour them some lemonade. At which point Muriel is actually plucking one of the weeds, and a snake pops out. And the snake actually terrifies Muriel, and the Scarecrow gets up and tries to scare the snake off, which doesn't work. At which point Courage comes out with the lemonade and screams when he sees the snake, which causes the snake to actually lose its nerve and actually bite its tail like an Ouroboros and just roll away. So at which point the Scarecrow actually becomes dejected, pointing out that if he can't protect Muriel from threats, that he doesn't feel like he's any good. Muriel merely reassures him, pointing out that he doesn't need to be able to scare her because nothing bad ever happens, which is a straight up lie. And case in point, as she says that, an ugly-looking alien shows up in his UFO, and the Scarecrow tries to scare him off, which fails miserably. At which point he points his ray gun at Muriel, but Courage just yells at, just screams so loud that his heart pops out, and the alien sees the beating heart and freaks out and decides to leave. Which only causes the Scarecrow to feel even more useless, because obviously Courage is doing his job better than the Scarecrow is supposed to be. And the final straw, pun very much intended, is when a rabbit shows up and the Scarecrow tries to scare it off, but the rabbit just takes a piece of straw out of his leg and then just wanders off. And at which point Muriel reassures him that he doesn't need to be scary, but he also just once again reaffirms his point that if he can't scare off a mere rabbit, then what good is he? And then later that night, he decides that he's actually going to become a lot tougher to actually protect Muriel. He starts listening to audio tapes to actually learn some tough guy phrases. He starts working out to make himself look a lot more buff. And by the next morning, the Scarecrow is completely jacked and wearing a military uniform. So yeah, he shows up at the house and actually. He shows up in the house and gets revenge on Eustace for pushing him earlier, because he beats up Eustace for being mean to Muriel, and then proceeds to knock his lights out and send him flying out of the roof and out of the house, which winds up making a mess, which Muriel remarks that Eustace really needs to clean up when he's eating. At which point Courage has seen this whole display and tries to warn Muriel about what's going on, but he merely assumes that Courage is actually a threat to her, picks him up, and then proceeds to, in the same manner he did Eustace, just beat him up a whole bunch and then knock him out through the ceiling. And he winds up landing on Eustace as a result of that. At which point the Scarecrow then proceeds to bring down a bunch of metal shutters to actually further protect Muriel. With Muriel merely remarking that the Scarecrow has actually gone to a little bit too far in his duties of protecting. At which point the Scarecrow tells Muriel that she's too exposed and that he needs to transport her to a safe house, and it's revealed that he's actually converted the entire basement into a safe house. He's actually padded it with a bunch of mattresses and a whole bunch of other things that he's found, and he's just turned it into a safe house and is now just decided to protect Muriel. And then he goes back up to the back up to the main house and closes the door to the basement. Meanwhile, Courage tries to go in the basement through the cellar doors, but he finds out that the Scarecrow's actually rigged a dragon puppet to actually protect the cellar doors. So he winds up breathing on Courage, fire at Courage, and Courage winds up getting singed a little bit. At which point he tries to find another way to get back in the house, at which point Eustace, he starts banging on the cellar doors and complaining about how he's hungry and that he needs syrup for his pancakes. But at which point Courage comes up to him and tries to get him to stop, but Eustace just picks him up and tells him not to come back until he gets his stuff, what he needs, and then proceeds to throw him into the mouth of the dragon and into the basement, which winds up working in Courage's favor, because now he's actually goes out through the tail of the dragon. Muriel is just happy to see Courage and points out that he's happy that he's there to save her. And at which point Courage picks her up, puts her on the head of the dragon puppet, and pulls a lever that causes it to pop in and out, which winds up roasting Eustace. And then they wind up getting up and out and into the truck, and they all get into the truck. Which the Scarecrow actually notices, and realizing that Muriel is in quote-unquote danger, he then proceeds to chase after them with a combine. So yeah, he chases them down the road and after them, and they actually wind up panicking, and Courage winds up swerving the truck back into the corn maze where they first met the Scarecrow, and wind up getting stuck in the same exact ditch that they got stuck in, while the Scarecrow actually chases them through the corn maze. But in case they wind up getting out of the truck, and Courage actually winds up picking up Muriel and running with her, but he's quickly becomes apparent that he can't outrun the Scarecrow on his combine, but then the Scarecrow winds up getting pecked by crows, and remembering what happened the last time the Scarecrow and crows had tried to interact and scare off some crows, he decides to call a bunch of crows to actually swarm the Scarecrow, and the Scarecrow winds up falling off the combine, and it winds up running over Eustace. We actually wind up seeing what the end result of that later, but I'll get into that. But in case the Scarecrow now battered and beaten and with all of his limbs having fallen off and pecked by crows, he then proceeds to express his discomfort at the fact that he wasn't able to be a loyal protector, because, as he explains, he doesn't feel like he can be a very scary Scarecrow, but he kind of has no choice because apparently he comes from a long line of being Scarecrows. Apparently his father was a Scarecrow, his grandfather was a Scarecrow, his great aunt was a Scarecrow. Basically, it just comes from a long line of Scarecrows who are always, well, scary, and they're always trying to scare things off. But Muriel merely remarks that he doesn't actually need to be scary. So she remarks that he's fine just the way he is. And wonders if he has any other talents, but and the Scarecrow remarks that there is indeed one thing that he's always wanted to do. And then as it turns out, he winds up running the hayride for the local fair, which winds up making him happy, and Muriel and Courage are just happy that he finally found his calling. And also Eustace winds up being one of the hay bales for the hayride because he got run over by the combine and was put in the back of the truck. But yeah, that's how the episode ends, with the Scarecrow finally finding a happy ending and finally figuring out what he's good at. So yeah, this episode was just interesting in that the Scarecrow wound up becoming an antagonist in the latter half of the episode because he didn't think he was worthy enough to protect Muriel and wound up going a little bit overboard trying to protect her, which isn't evil. It's just him going a little bit overboard in his duty to protect his owner and his farm, which he does. And even then, she's not really his owner because they kind of picked him up off the street, but it is just kind of interesting that he does go a little bit overboard trying to protect her. But in any case, that is my review of Courage the Cowardly Dog. What do you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support future projects like this. This is obviously a very big project, and I will need you guys' help. But if you guys want to actually support future projects like this, just link is down in the description. Go check that out. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then there's actually two ways you can do that. One is by checking out my Twitch down in the description. I stream every Sunday at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, and not only are we streaming horror games to go along with Courage Month, but in a little over a week, we're actually going to be doing a live watch along of the crossover movie with Scooby-Doo for the grand finale of this. So yeah, if you guys want to absolutely see that, again, link is down in the description. Be sure you follow me over there so you do not miss the grand finale of this, because that is going to be a very big and very important thing that we're going to be doing to end off this month-long Courage review-a-thon, I guess we can call it. But yeah, if you guys want to see that, again, link is down in the description. Just make sure you don't miss it. It is very important that you don't. And also, the other way you can actually see more content from me is by actually checking out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent one. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. And both of those may or may not be Courage related. But yeah, just be sure to go check both of those out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!